just give you a little background of like the order of our fast days. So on the calendar, the fast days, the minor fast days, we have the 3rd of Tishrei, that's Tzom Gedalia. That's like the first one right after Rosh Hashanah. Then we have 10th of Tevet, which is a little bit later, Tishrei, Cheshvan, Kislev, Tevet. Then we have the 7th of Tammuz now. Then we have the 9th of Av. But that's not the order historically in which the tragedies happened. So it's like on our calendar it appears that way, but it's really not like that at all. So here's just a little bit like a background of the order based on like the first temple. So in the first temple, the Babylonians, there was a siege on Jerusalem, and that happened for 3 years or so. Okay, so it was a long fought war, and it began on the 10th of Tevet. So that was really the first one, the 10th of Tevet, and that was in 589 BCE. And then 3 years, 2.5 so years later, in the 17th of Tammuz, in 586, the walls were breached. So first it was kind of they broke in. They first started the siege in Jerusalem, and the walls were finally breached on the 17th of Tammuz. And 3 weeks later, the temple was destroyed. So it's interesting to think about why did it take 3 weeks to get through a wall to the temple? Well, there really were 3 walls there, and so there were different lines of attack and different pressure that the Jews, those in Jerusalem, pushed back against the invaders, but eventually they ended up invading and destroying the temple. So that's like the order. It's a 2.5-year siege on the first temple, 10th of Tevet, 17th of Tammuz, in 586, and then destruction of the temple. In the second temple, it wasn't that long. It was only 5 months. And the breaching of the walls happened on the 17th of Tammuz, and the destruction of the temple happened on the 9th of Av. So it's interesting that there's a parallel here. The 9th of Av is for sure a parallel between the first and second temple. On the 17th of Tammuz, it's not so clear there's a parallel because the first temple could have been on the 9th of Av. There's a little bit of a discussion around that, but it's very close. Both 3 weeks. So that's the main reason why we're mourning during this time, is that there's 3 weeks between the breaching of the walls and the destruction of the temple for both temples. So we're thinking about the temple all throughout this period. There's some mourning practices which we'll talk about tomorrow. On the 17th of Tammuz, other things happened. A few other things happened. Moshe broke the tablets. Now this was obviously much earlier. This is in the time of the Torah. Moshe broke the tablets. Two other things happened. A Roman leader, Apostomus, he burnt the Torah, and this is around in the second temple period. And then there was also an idol placed in the temple around in the second temple period as well. So all those things happened on the 17th of Tammuz. And one more thing happened was the sacrifices came to an end. Some say that was in the first temple. So we have Moshe from the Torah, and some say in the first temple, even before the walls were breached, they during the siege in Babylonians, the siege, they didn't have a way. The flow of animals stopped, so they couldn't bring the sacrifices anymore. And then eventually, the walls were breached, etc. And then in the second temple, we have things that happen with the idol and with the burning of the Torah. And so all these calamities happen. If you think, I saw some commentators speaking about what's the connection between these different things, tragedies. The main idea that's put forth is these are fundamental spiritual things. You have the tablets; it's a fundamental spiritual thing. You have the Torah, which was the burning of the Torah. You have the altar, which is the sacrifice in the altar. You have the temple walls, and you have the idol in the inner sanctuary. So really, all these are really fundamental spiritual things, and they happen at different time periods. But experientially, on the 17th of Tammuz, we're supposed to be thinking about those inner spiritual things, because once our spirit is impacted, once our spirit is lowered, once we're diminished and spiritually, that's when we can easily be overrun and overcome, and physically. And so basically, we're thinking about the 17th of Tammuz, the spiritual destruction, and on the 9th of Tammuz is the physical destruction. And one really leads to the other. If we're not strong spiritually, we won't be able to be strong physically and have a strong stance in the world.